I remember meeting you around the time this place was just opening. Was that even a year ago or not quite a year
Not
ago?
quite a year ago. I would say it might actually be a year to the day that we were building the floor and like putting the mats down. Because a couple weeks after that, we had like an informal speakeasy open mat. We're not really supposed to be in here yet, but
Yeah,
come
well,
in, train, christen the space a little bit.
yeah. There's a space.
Yeah,
Whether it's
exactly.
legally like street legal is a different thing.
Right. Yeah, it's like there are mats. We can train on them, but it's the equivalent of training in a garage. Like it's not a business. So,
Yeah, we'll keep it on the low key. Well, I mean, you're a year past that. But anyways, what I was gonna say is I noticed you have like that little like rack of medals over there, and I remember you like telling me about them.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's kind of cool because even the tone of our conversation around your business in general has been different. Like I had the opportunity to pop up with you just the other day. You were telling me all kinds of new stuff, and I'm like, man, I guess I haven't talked to Steve in like that long. But like even just the conversation, bro, like when I first talked to you, you're like, oh yeah, we just invested in this gym. We're putting this place together ourselves. And, right now we're paying everything out of pocket. I'm working the job, blah, blah, blah. All of it, very real things that happen in a business. And now I come in here and I'm like, that thing looks like it's filled out a little bit more. You're telling me you got business. People showed up. So we tried recording something the other day. There's people literally coming here when you're saying, oh, we haven't had a bunch of classes yet. And then, there's people here. And to me, I'm just like, wow. So I see more medals on the wall and business is good. Life is good right now.
Things are definitely getting better every day. We worked really hard on the space. We tried our best to make a blend of, this is a nice place. And then also, oh, but they're for real. And so that's the combination of what you're talking about, right? You walk in, you're like, oh, this is a legit business and people are coming here and they're taking classes and there's more medals on the wall and things like that. That's all part of it. We one of the things that we really wanted to bring was like a bit of authenticity as well as like just we're for real, a bit of legitimacy, if you will, because our logo is a cat. Sometimes people think that, that makes, we don't take things very seriously and we try to make things fun and light in here. But, we're pretty legit as well.
Well, yeah, because that's another thing I forgot in my Life is Good rant for you. You also just got a black belt.
I did.
We just talked about that like literally the other day, and I was just like, I don't want to talk about it the same way, but what it made me think about is I'm in here again, more medals on the wall. Life is good, and you got to be legit. Like you got to be that guy for this business. Like you got that black belt now. How many years is that in the making?
It was, I want to say just over 15 now.
Over 15?
Yeah, over 15. I think the average is something like 10. Some of us take a little bit longer. I didn't have the raw talent a lot of people bring to it, so it took me a little bit longer. I grew into it a little bit over time.
So then tell me what that process is like. It took you about 15 years, and I know you go to a lot of gyms, stuff like that. So at what point do you just get a black belt? Like, how do you like earn that?
That is something that it kind of looks different for everybody. But it usually ends up being a combination of a lot of things. The first one is time. Sticking with it, grinding through the ebb and flow of I feel really good about this and the why am I doing this? When somebody who's been doing it way less time than you or something like that works you over and you're like, man, I've been putting a lot of time into this and here I am with that. But sticking through those parts and then learning technique, showing you've learned technique. You can do that by competing. You can do that by helping teach others.
Well, yeah. So I've seen plenty of pictures of you guys. It looks like you go to a lot of other gyms, and to me, like this is my reference point. So bear with me. This is the layman looking at what you guys do. I'm thinking like Karate Kid. You got this tournament, then you got like Cobra Kai. You got Daniel Son like ready to go, and there's this good guys, bad guys, and it's like this whole competition room, but. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's totally like that. So what is the organization of it? Like, do you just get like a black belt locally? Is there like a global like rank of black belt? Like, what is like the ecosystem? Because you also mentioned, you said, oh, I got this black belt. Now that kind of puts a mark on me. Like what is that? Like, what's a mark look like?
Sure. So I guess it kind of look like a lot of different things. There are organizations, there's IBJJF, the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation. That's one way to get your belt recognized. usually your instructor and your instructor's instructor are recognized, and then that sort of lineage gets passed down. So there's a lot of history in that. That's one, that's one piece of it, but a lot of it is recognition. You have coaches, you have instructors, and throughout the years they see you hit certain milestones, benchmarks. You're competing more, you're winning more, whatever it is that they want to see. Maybe in some cases, maybe it's you're growing up a little bit, right? They're watching your ego die off a little bit. You're thinking more strategically, and then they start to say, oh, okay, this person has leveled up, has promoted, and so. A black belt is sort of just one of the steps in that progression. It's not necessarily, the end all and be all of everything. But for a lot of people, they're looking at that as like, oh, that's the goal. It stops there. And so that's where it can kind of feel like a target, because as soon as you have that, it's like, well, if I beat that black belt, I'm a black belt, right? And so that can be where that can kind of come in a little bit.
I get that part of things, but how do people recognize like a black belt? Is there like a registry? Like, so for example, you said you travel a lot to different, like I know you said you're going away for work even just this weekend. 7-hour drive to, where was it?
Cleveland.
Yeah.
Yep.
So heading there, and you're planning on just kind of going to the gyms, whether you know them or not. You're just going to pull up, and like, do you know if there's black belts there already? Like, are you aware of the ecosystem that?
Sure. There are black belts. I would say it's not incredibly common that there are as many as, a place like Asbury, where I got my black belt, where you can go on a given Friday or Saturday night and there's 13 people wearing black belts on the mat. That's a little bit less common. But I mean, most gyms are owned by black belts, or people pretty close to it. We started this. I had been a brown belt for over 3 years already, so we were kind of moving in that direction anyway. And we have an instructor who's a black belt in addition to that. So you can go to a gym and there's usually a black belt on the mat. Different gyms have different cultures. Some places, maybe the guy that owns the place doesn't roll. We sort of have some philosophy around that, some opinions on that from time to time. We try not to bring any of that, with us. Like, the goal of going to a gym and visiting is not like a dojo storm, right? It's not a kung fu movie where I'm like, oh, like my Eastern style beat your Western style or something like that. It's not quite that serious. But still, I mean, it can be a little bit daunting or intimidating to walk into, a place where you don't know anybody, and then you pull that dark colored belt, that purple, that brown, that black belt out of your bag, and everyone's looking around like, oh, like who's this person coming in, and then you kind of have to show up and represent a little bit, in a way, but also still keep it fun and respectful. I'm doing it for fun when I'm dropping in on these places. I'm not doing it to prove anything.
So yeah, there's obviously the respect that comes with the black belt. It is what it is, but I think, and this is kind of what I want to hone in on. Is there like a certain black belt that you could get where it's like, oh, he got a black belt under this person or at this gym, versus like, oh, they got a black belt at this gym? Is that a thing, like, at all? Or?
It can be, but that's more with like more well-known organizations. If I'm getting my black belt from somebody who's competing on the world stage consistently, or under some banner, some team, some affiliation that traces back to the roots and things like that, sometimes that can look one way or another. And there are people who are strict, professional competitors. There are people who are hobbyists. I've always been more of a hobbyist. The closest thing to professional is I decided to start to bring jiu-jitsu to more people and open a gym. So, there can be different vibes, different opinions based on, where it came from and things like that. It is a common question. It's just like, when you go get a job and they're like, where'd you get your degree from and things like that. That's for sure. When I drop in on a gym, they'll be like, oh, where do you usually train? And I'm like, oh, I train out of Asbury Park Jiu-Jitsu. Kevin Roddy and Ian Clark are two of the instructors
so people know, like, those guys, basically, like.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and so usually what'll happen is you usually end up saying like your instructor and then like who gave them their black belt, and then the sport's not that old, so you can go back a couple of rungs on the ladder before you start to figure it out, like what lineage they descended from and things like that.
Even in some of the older stuff where there's like a culture to it, and it's just like, you just know this person is like the OG of this, or is the best of the best of the person, because social media has got us all messed up, because you could make yourself look like you're incredible and be doing something for almost no time, but you look like, I see it with tattoos specifically. Like there's an artist who been doing this for 30 years. Like you don't hear about a lot of tattoo artists tattooing for 30 years.
Right.
But meanwhile, this guy's been doing it and he's been killing it. Everyone just knows him. But on Instagram, everything else, like he's got his following. People, well, but he's not like outward. Like you might see someone with like all these finely polished videos and like, doing all this stuff. It's just like you kind of have to know. You got to be in that culture. So I think if jiu-jitsu isn't really that old in a sense, I guess like organized level, it's almost hard to vet the clout. Like you really got to just know the community. And to that end, I find what you do super interesting. You got a literal community of just like, it spans. It's not just like, it's obviously local. Sure. Like you can turn up somewhere else entirely though. And there's going to be some crossover. And,
I mean, it's one of the best things about it is, as far as the community goes, I could go on vacation to Costa Rica and I could look up jiu-jitsu in, this town and send a DM to the gym and just be like, I'm going to be in town on, this week. And I think that day works. Like, what's your policy on having drop-ins? Maybe avoid gyms where they say we don't allow drop-ins. That's just a red flag. But, what's your policy on drop-ins? What's the mat fee? Like, any of that stuff. What's a good night to drop in? Because I can only get away from, the trip for a couple of hours. So, if you tell me everybody comes to our Friday night open mat, I'm like, okay, then that's the night I'm going to plan for. And you can go anywhere and then instantaneously, it doesn't matter whether you speak the same language, doesn't matter whether you trained from, a rival gym, anything like that. At most places, you're just unanimously welcome. You're instantaneously, you're part of a community. I've gone places where at the end, I'm like pulling out my phone and pulling up Uber and someone's like, where are you staying? Let me just drive you over there after, training. We're fighting for 45 minutes and then they're just like, oh, like I have to literally pass the hotel you're staying at. Let me drive you there. So it's kind of cool how the community goes that way as well.
There's something about, especially when you get when you add physicality to it, when you go through something with someone, whether it be like, they always hear about, you go through something challenging with someone, so you bond, or like, it's
the
really
trauma bond.
The trauma bond,
Yeah.
but that exists like in a physical space, right? Like if you're wrestling with someone and like no one really knows how that's going except for you two grappled right now, you're rolling around, that experience is pretty exclusive to you guys.
Yeah.
And like there's it's not like a thing that you could just go to the mall and pick up like a
right.
you don't just like wrestle.
Yeah, there's a lot of respect. I think that's like really what it boils down to is like, when you're training with someone, you're kind of seeing what they're all about. You're going to see, you're going to feel, their energy level. You're going to see like, oh, like their mental model going into it. Like, oh, they like to play this type of game. How am I going to deal with that? And like, so then it like piques like that gamer interest, like the strategic piece. And then obviously the physical part. And then keeping in mind dire consequences as well. Like a tap is an admission of like, please don't kill me. Stop. I'm so uncomfortable. I'm choking, the blood's leaving my brain and I'm starting to feel dizzy. Like whatever, you have my joint in a compromised position. A tap is an admission of, hey, this is over. You have won. And so there's like some respect there too, because it's like, I'm anticipating you're going to respect that tap and you're going to let go. And it could easily have gone the other way or it could go the other way. And then we're in this place where that ends and it's like, hey man, like just, props, respect. And you were mentioning like, how do you vet people and how do you see? And you kind of just know. You can kind of tell, especially in like a no-gi class where I don't wear my black belt, right? But as soon as you make connections with somebody, you're like, oh, this guy's good. Like the second they touch you or the second, they take a specific grip or a post or something and you're like, oh, this person has something to offer, or they start doing some type of complex entry or system and you're like, okay, this person knows something that I'm not really proficient at. Let me get out of this situation as quickly as I can.
Wow. So, dude, what's interesting about this, though, is, like, especially, like, there are some dire consequences. You land on your neck. Yeah, like, all kinds of weird stuff, like, that could happen. But, like, aside from that, big community, right? Accessible to anyone. And what I noticed the other day when I was here, you had a children's class. And I don't really know what to expect with that, but I know that, again, like my reference point is a lot of movies because I'd never done this stuff like growing up. But, there's a lot of ways you can treat a student. So there's like, you could treat them kind of lovingly, tenderly, and kind of soft, or you could be that stern, but you're disciplining them, or you could just be a complete, pain is weakness leaving the body. Like you should, like there's a lot of different training modalities. But when I was here, I kind of peeked in the room as I was cleaning up some of my stuff, and dude, I hear like Moana soundtrack. I hear like, I'm watching them roll across the nets, your giggles, and I see the soccer ball, bro. Like it looked lit. Like it looked like a good time. And I think, forget about just anyone having like that need to just like get a little physical. But I think that's why we have sports. It's like you got young minds. I kind of tape around this. I feel like there's a lot of ways you could look at activity like this. Because traditionally, like when we were growing up, or maybe when I was growing up, I don't think I'm that much older than you. Like, dude, there's just like, I don't know, you get hurt and your dad's just like, or anyone. Rub some dirt on it. Literally was the thought I was thinking right as I was saying that. And I don't know, we're pretty far removed from that. And now you're in the position where you have the gym, you kind of control the pace, you've sweat real hard for your black belt. You made that happen over 15 years. But meanwhile, you got, little guys on the mat and you're just keeping it light.
Yeah. And they're on day 5 of that journey, right? They're on, it's really different. I like the way that, like you mentioned, like you try to make it accessible. And like, that's really what it is like trying to open up something that's a little bit more complex than, other sport. I'm biased, right? But something where, you have to take a bunch of kids of all different, they come from all different houses, different levels of discipline, different ages, different maturity levels. More than anything, you mentioned all the different music and stuff. It's about trying to find a way to capture as many of those energies as you can, and then figure out what's the best way to help this person versus this person versus this person. And then at the end, ultimately with the kids, it's how do you make it fun for them to learn something that could be really important for them one day.
Yeah.
I hope that it's not, I hope that, maybe the world starts to move in a slightly more friendly direction and we don't feel like self-defense and things are so necessary, where we can focus on the fun part of it.
Yeah, because it doesn't sound like there needs to necessarily be a dire, like, I got to learn jujitsu to defend myself. It sounds like there's more to it than that. Which is
exactly. I want to give them the game piece of it. And that's what keeps them involved and engaged. But at the same time, we are drilling techniques. I'm teaching them how to apply, a proper armbar from, a mounted position or something like that. And I also have to be, it's you mentioned, you can't be like, oh, rub some dirt on it and stuff like that. But you do also have to kind of provide them enough guidance and structure that they need to respect that when I say, hey, a tap means we freeze, I have to know that they're going to freeze. Because I wouldn't want some, a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old on their first day of class to have a kid who's been doing this with me for 6 months.
Oh, yeah, no way.
Rip an armbar or something, and then that kid's terrified. Even if it wasn't actually, when kids get scared, they respond, a certain way. And that's the other part too, is like, hey, are you hurt? And then they go, no, I'm okay. I'm okay. And you're like, okay, so you're not hurt. I have an ice pack. Let's talk about what happened. Like, that was a scary situation. You kind of like bring them back into it. That's always worked better. Whenever, I've never really seen a kids class where they were ran the way that, sports were or wrestling was back in middle school for me. Like, things have definitely changed, and I think for the better in the way that we do that. But at the same time, you do still need to find a way to get some discipline out of it. It can't be all games. I can't get walked on by these 6-year-olds, it's a balancing act.
You got to know where to draw the line. But I just think it's really cool, just even, because, again, recent black belt, everything like that, where everything kind of comes along where, you have the resources and you want to spread that to like another generation. But in that, you have to get better at at everything too.
Yeah, exactly. I have to. We were kind of talking about it a little bit before. It's like there are little things that you don't think about when you start teaching children jiu-jitsu. Having experience from other places or helping out with kids programs, it's very different when your name's on the door or something like that. And making sure that, you know, the culture that you're bringing to it and the specific, you know, the brand of jiu-jitsu that you want to bring is passed on to them. And learning what that means and learning when you have to adjust and learning, you know, sometimes you have a kid they had a bad day. They don't want to be listening to you. They want to run around in circles and swat butterflies. And it doesn't matter that you have other kids executing, you know, a throw or something, and you have to worry that this other kid is like trying to run off into the parking lot or something like that. You know, it can get a little bit hectic. Yeah. So.
Because I know it's not even just like the kids' classes. You also have women's self-defense, which I think is interesting because I wouldn't associate jiu-jitsu with like a women's sport. Obviously, it wouldn't not include it. But again, all the representations of that stuff, whether it be media or everything like that, it's usually male dominant. And when it comes to self-defense, that's something where it's like you're in a male-dominated world. You got to know how to defend yourself. So now it's like you bridge that accessibility to women. And what I first noticed this was even with Burgers and Beatdown, the event from about a year ago when we first started talking, was that was a co-ed event. It wasn't your traditional just like, oh, we're matching these guys up, they're going to spar. Like that had a different flair to it as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we try to encourage there to be, you know, we encourage everyone to like respect your training partners and, you know, keep in mind, you know, a 19-year-old guy is going to be, you know, a little bit stronger and have a little bit more energy than, you know, a mom who's doing this for leisure or something.
Yeah, I would.
But we want to make it a place where everybody can train together. Like that's one of our biggest priorities. And, you know, you mentioned the women's defense seminars. We also have, just, you know, shameless plug, on May 30th, we're doing a women's only open mat where only women come and they spar and train. We encourage, you know, co-ed training and intermixing because we want you to feel like the technique's going to work on a bigger, stronger opponent or someone who maybe isn't going to have the same like laissez-faire vibe that you're bringing to it. And we want to show you that, you know, the techniques are real and they will work. But we want to bring it to that's one of the goals. It's I mentioned again, you know, our logo is a cat. Like we don't take ourselves that seriously. We want it to be a place where you're like, oh, like this is cool for the whole family, you know. The mom can train, the kid can take the kids class, the dad can train after the kids class. We actually have two of the girls that train with us, their dad will sometimes hop on the mat. He's also a black belt, so that's been really cool.
That's really cool because then at that point it's a whole family affair.
Exactly, and like I think one of the things that also helps is like the parents not in a rush to get out of here because they're going to train after, and the kids get to see their parent doing something that they're doing, and it kind of gets them excited. You know, they get hyped for it, and vice versa. You know, the parent gets to see the kid like, oh, you know, you don't get a black belt without loving this sport. You just don't. Like most people quit at blue belt because it starts to get hard, right? So you got a parent. They see their kid doing it and they're like, oh man, I love that they're doing it.
I also just really want to stress the physicality aspect of it because you know, modern day, it's possible. A lot of people don't know because we're behind screens a lot and just a lot of things have been, I don't want to say neutered. I'm not trying to be like that, but like in a way, just sort of like simplified maybe is a better word.
Sure.
Where it's not as hands-on, but yeah, like team sports isn't all the same, but when you go through something with someone or even just physically, you've tried it before and you've either hit your limit with it or you know what it is, and then you see someone else do it, even if it's your parents or your kid, like there's a real understanding too. Yep. That's what I really, really, really like about something physical sport-wise. I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's the mats don't lie. The technique doesn't lie. There's a difference between, you know, when you talk about something, when you type about something, when you watch something. You could watch jiu-jitsu all day, every day. You could actually understand concepts. The minute you physically try to do it, everything changes. You don't know how your body works anymore. Like you have to overcome a whole list of obstacles just to kind of implement that technique. And like I said, you can tell right away, like, oh, this is way different than I thought it was. And that's one of the things that, you know, we love about it. It's one of the things that inspired us to open the gym was we want to bring that to more people. We want to show people, you know, that it can be for anyone, but you have to do it. You have to put that time in.
So the passion's there, obviously, where you want to sort of spread this to the people around you. And I think I'm a little more curious about that, right? So I remember you said you started basically with high school wrestling, and then you were in an area where you couldn't get a wrestling program, so you effectively, that was your start, right?
Yeah, it was more or less my segue. I mean, I wrestled through middle school and high school. It was like the hardest thing I ever did, being a chubby little kid, coming in, needing to roll with kids my own weight, who were, of course, much bigger and older, because kids my weight weren't my age.
That's scary at the time too,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. I mean, and it wasn't necessarily in a program where, like, the directive was, you know, hey, you're partnered up, go. It wasn't, you know, hey, let's do some games with a soccer ball, passing it back and forth between our hands and our feet first. Like, it was just, you're now getting slammed by this 14-year-old man, you know, over and over again. And here I am, 11 years old, like, you know, like trying not to cry in front of other people. And then fast forward that, you know, I started to learn a lot about myself and try to become a little bit more resilient with it. And then I fell in love with that side of it. I went away to a school that just didn't have a wrestling team. Kind of had the itch, was trying to think about what I might want to do. Got super into watching MMA. I used to wear, like, you know, like Tap Out and Affliction and all that stuff, you know, when I was around like 17, 18 years old. And then one day I was with a bunch of buddies. We were watching a UFC. It might have been like UFC 100, like the big one with like Brock Lesnar and Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre, all on the same card. It was like it was the first time they had like 3 title fights in one night.
That was like right when it was getting big too.
It was It was like really when I started to notice that like a lot more people were getting into it. And I forget what I said. It was like I made a comment about the way one of the fighters on the undercard or something, the way he was applying like pressure on somebody. And one of my buddies immediately just was like, I didn't know you were training. Like, where do you train? Like, talk to me about it. And like, kind of like, you know, like a matter of like pride or whatever, I was like, I'll start tomorrow. And I found a place down by school where I was at, and literally walked in the next day, was just like, hey, I want to know about all this. Thought I wanted to be an MMA fighter at that time. That ended up turning into strictly grappling and jiu-jitsu. I still kickbox from time to time, but never like competitively.
So what actually put you more towards grappling versus the contact? Just the contact's a lot. Well, I shouldn't say contact. It's not contact. You're doing that now.
I mean, when you're sparring, there's I would call it like a different type of contact. Honestly, just not being very good at protecting myself. I think probably like 6 months in, I was in a sparring session. We used to call them Campfire Fridays. We would turn the heat up to 98 degrees in the gym, and we would just brawl out.
You're crazy for that.
I mean, yeah. So, you know, 18-year-old kid kickboxing with another 18-year-old kid, and I think I got like rocked or something, because again, I don't protect my face well, and I defaulted to wrestling. So I started like going for a takedown, and he decided a knee was his response to my shot. Brilliant technique on his part. And cut my head open. And I remember being on the phone with my mom, like, Mom, I'm okay. One of my friends is gonna drive me to the hospital, and she's like, "That's your face. Like, that's all you have." And I'm like, "Thanks, Mom." But she's like, "That's your face. Like, you know, maybe you should think about, you know, this hobby, taking it more seriously, you know, whatever." And then I was like, you know what, maybe I'll stick to grappling. I'll stick to like contact being incidental, like actual impact being incidental rather than the goal, and just didn't really look back from that. I have kickboxed from time to time. I enjoy like the workout of like Muay Thai and things like that. I spent a couple weeks in Thailand, and I trained at Tiger Muay Thai for a little bit.
No way.
So like I have trained, but when it comes to like thinking about actually fighting or being a real like MMA fighter, like I let those guys do it. I love all my teammates that fight MMA, because I'm like, hey man, like every win that you get feels good, because if I ever showed you something on the jiu-jitsu mats, like it's like I'll never take the walk, but you represent all of us when you do, and kind of give that to them instead. That's my piece of it.
That's cool, man. So believe it or not, we've already been at it for 30 minutes. But
wow.
What I do want to say, though, is I don't want to slip by this, because I met you around the time with Burgers and Beatdowns, which was a cool event. And I know you have another one coming up. And I know it's going to have a little bit of a different structure. I don't think that's for today, but I do think it's worth noting because you already announced it. So
yeah. I mean, July 12th, we're going to do another Burgers and Beatdowns. I'll say overall vibe going to be very similar, right? For fun, you know, bring the family out, hang out, get some good burgers. You know, Mike's a great guy. We love all the support that he's given us and all the shout outs and everything. Linking me up with you guys has been really awesome.
Hell yeah, man.
As well,
awesome.
you know, and with that, and we're going to change the format up a little bit. We'll do more to announce that and start to build hype, but it's going to be a little bit different than like the way that we structured it with the co-ed and the random and stuff. We found some things that we want to tweak a little bit. We want to do something a little bit unique that doesn't really exist, but keep that whole like fun, you know, we'll call it like stress-free competition environment, you know?
Yeah, keep it friendly. You had families there. It was cool. I'm planning on posting the short that we made for you guys, or the reel, onto YouTube, because
okay, very cool.
I think it'll be cool to be there. And also, when I reference it right now, I could make it like pop up in the corner.
Yeah,
so
yeah, absolutely.
But no, the reason I'm saying that though is like it was a total vibe, man. Like I had like the garage open. I know we're not in the garage, but that's like where your space is.
Yep.
I mean, I'm telling you, you already know this. But for anyone who can't see the space, right? But and anyways, yeah, there was just like literally there's tables outside, people chilling. There was like in the middle of between matches. I keep on calling them sets. Between matches, there's like this kid rolling around the mat. That was fun.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know, so it was just like it was cozy, and I think that's a cool thing to exist, especially in something that is otherwise maybe a little intimidating.
Yeah, I mean, competing can be very intimidating for a lot of people. So if you can find a way to remove any pressure, you know, if I'm walking around in a referee t-shirt and leopard print shorts, like it's hard for you to get anxious about competing or performing, and then it becomes more of like a show. It's for fun. You know, we participated in our own way, and that's what we want to do. Is we'll probably do that again in some capacity.
Bro, I hope someone knows about this black belt and is gonna be like, "Yo, I'm pulling up that day."
I mean, I don't know what the plans will be for, you know, as far as taking matches and things like that, but I mean,
I'm kind of messing with you.
If I'm in it, I mean, anybody's welcome to, you know, that's the whole point, right? It's anybody, and you know, we adjust the rules around, you know, the competitors and things like that. And you know, I will never claim to be the best, but I'll also never turn down a role. It's always fun to see what someone's about. Happy to.
That's fire, man. I just like that in general. So let me think before we wrap up here. I feel like there's so much more, man. Like I feel like you have a really cool background. I think you've done something really big with starting a gym. I think that you have your own community that plays into a bigger one. And I always just really like to express appreciation for that stuff, because I think it's what keeps us human. There's a lot of stuff out there that, whether it be, you know, the AI that's taking your job,
sure,
or whatever silly things we talk about, there's still a lot of superhuman things that happen. And that's because people actually still care about it. So that's cool.
I mean, this is one of those things you can, like I said, you can read about what ChatGPT has to say about technique, but until you're here doing it, you know, you can't AI your way out of an ass whooping. So
so you can grapple with a monitor or PC tower,
sure,
but
yeah,
you can't really grip on, and at that point you just smash it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we love it. We're super passionate about it. Wouldn't have been able to do this without, you know, Dan, Jen, and Alex, and my wife Jackie, and Alex's wife Ryan. But just the support that went into that built a community that's ever growing. We love the feedback we've been getting from people. We love getting our name out there. We love showing up at tournaments. We love supporting our teammates and you know, our extended family and our other teammates and things. That's what it's all about. We want to give what we got coming into this, and hopefully help people maybe not have to go through as much struggle or take as long as it maybe takes some of us to get all the way to the top.
Well, the top aside, I think even just finding a good program to stay fit these days is worth its merit, to be honest. You know, a lot of weight training programs and stuff like that, but I think people forget about the functionality of your body, and the only way, especially your functionality against someone else doing something with their body.
No shape like fight shape, that's for sure.
But hell yeah, man, this has been a lot of fun, and I appreciate you just taking the time to do this again. I know you're super busy. You do still work other jobs. You know what I mean? Like, we're sitting here talking about this gym the whole time, but like, you know, Steve is still working, you know, multiple hours. You're about to take a big trip, but you know, you keep it fun. Find the jiu-jitsu gym, and I think that's cool.
Try my best.
But all right, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You got it, brother.
Awesome.
And yeah, I'm sure we'll be doing something again at some point soon.
Absolutely. Love that.
I'll be